G'day drummers, it's Rob Litton here from drumstheword.com. Hope you're doing well. This song has been requested many times by many different people over on my Facebook page, so I'm very happy to be able to give you the full song lesson for free for the song Faster by Within Temptation, drummed by Nicka Hellenberg. I've got all 4 pages of the full song PDF drum chart for you to download. You'll find a link to this free PDF beneath this video, so have this printed out in front of you as we go through this together. Tempo is 120 BPM, and the song starts with the guitar, just 4 bars of guitar, and then the rest of the band kick in, including Nicka on the drums. And he's basically riding up on the crash cymbal for most of this song, really. Apart from that, it's just the open hi-hat. It doesn't really use the ride cymbal, but if you want to give your crash cymbal a break, then you could use the ride cymbal for all these crash cymbal sections. It won't really make any difference. It's just, it sounds more like a crash on the recording than a ride, so it's up to you really, but it doesn't matter. So I'm going to use the crash because that's what I think he's playing. And we've got this 2-bar drum beat, which Nicka starts playing. It's first bar, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... Then we skip over beat 1 in the second bar with the bass drum, coming on the and at beat 1. 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and that same idea then gets played into bar 3. We skip over beat 1. 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and it's the same for the 4th bar. 1 and 2. But then what he plays is a little double bass drum lick. We get 3 notes in a row. Don't worry too much about the notation. It's 16th note triplets. Don't worry about what that means. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to start a group of 3 notes with the right hand on the and of beat 2, and it's going to end just before beat 3 with a snare drum again. So we get 1 and 2 and 3. And what I like to do, I've written on the notation as alternating bass drum feet, but I find it more comfortable to play my way, which is left, left, right. You'd play right, right, left because you'd probably have a normal setup where you're leading with, you're playing your bass drum with your right foot. I play the bass drum with my left foot, so I'll play left, left, right. I just found that little lick there helps me get through groups of 3 on the double bass drum a little bit more comfortably than playing it as singles. But you will get more power if you play it as singles, but I'm pretty good with the doubles with a single foot, so I play it left, left, right. 1 and 2 and 3. So 1 and 2 and 3. 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 There's like another second. There's a second double bass drum lick coming up later in the song, but for this particular lick, you don't have to play it as a double bass drum lick. You could, if you haven't got a double pedal, you could just play it 1 and 2 and a 3. I'm just playing and-a with a single foot. 1 and 2 and a 3. If you haven't got the double bass drum pedal, you're not comfortable with it, then you could just play it as a group of 2 notes. No one's going to miss or really hear the difference. But on the recording, Nicka plays 1 and 2 and 3. 1 and 2 and 3. He then leads the drum fill out 3 and 4 and. So we get 3 and 4 down the toms and 4 and a crash cymbal. You could use a different crash cymbal on the and of beat 4, and then we're back to the next line where we're just continuing to ride on the crash cymbal. So whenever you've got these crash cymbals on their own, perhaps use a second crash cymbal if you've got one. It doesn't matter, if you've got one crash cymbal, that's all you can do. But if you've got a second crash cymbal, then perhaps use a different crash for the crash cymbals that appear on their own. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. And I'll just actually play and 1, come back on beat 1 with the crash cymbal on the next line. But notice there's no bass drum on beat 1. We get 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and. So that drum beat just gets repeated again 3 more times. 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and. Then the last bar of that line, 1 and 2 and 3, 3 and 4 and. I think it's floor tom and snare drum, 4 and. It could be a flow on the snare drum, but I think it's a floor tom and snare drum, 4 and 1 into our first verse. So slowly those 2 lines, 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, 3 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. And I think I messed up a little bit there. I think I left out a bass drum on the and a beat 4 the first time, that drum fill at the end. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. It's important you get that bass drum in there with the crash cymbal. I think I accidentally left it out there, but I'll play up to speed for you in a moment properly. So then we go into verse 1. In brackets I've written hi-hat, so it's a closed hi-hat. And this is very simple really. We just got a basic rock drum beat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. The end of that first line though, he plays 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 1. By the way, I presume that Nicka Hellenberg is a guy. I'm not sure. It might be a female drummer. I'm not sure. 1 and 2 and 3, 4 and 1. 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 1. So we get a little open hi-hat there at the end of the line on the and a beat 4 with the and 3 as well. 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 1. Next line is the same, just 3 bars of basic rock groove, but then the last bar is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So open hi-hats on 3 and 4. 3 and 4 with those snare drums. 3 and 4, 1. It then closes with a crash cymbal on line 3. 1, 2 and 3 and 4. 1, 2 and 3 and 4. So notice we've got snare drum on 2, 3 and on beat 4 there. Next line, like I said, the hi-hat closes with the crash cymbal. And then bar 4 of that line is exactly the same as line 1. We get 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 1. Last line of the verse 1, we get 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and. So 4 and preceded by 3 bass drum notes. 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and. Then we go into bridge 1. I've written in brackets loose hi-hat, so it's a loose hi-hat now. And we get this drum beat. 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Then the next 2 bars are the same as each other. 1, 2 and 3 and 4. 1, 2 and 3 and 4. Then that last bar, 1 and 2 and 3 and. Now you could play it as a double bass drum lick here. I've written it as a single bass drum lick because it's possible to play this with 1 bass drum foot. But if you wanted to, you could play it as a double bass drum lick. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 4 and is rested out. It's important that you leave beat 4 alone. You don't play anything on beat 4. You could keep the hi-hat open ringing like I tend to, and then close it on beat 1 of the next time when we go into chorus 1, or you could close it with the floor tom and snare drum. 1 and 2 and 3 and. In fact, that probably sounds better that you close it there on beat 3. 1 and 2 and 3 and, or the and a beat 3 as I did there. But as long as you've got beat 4 sort of empty, then I think that'll sound better. So let me play this up to speed for you now. I'm going to play you the intro, verse 1, and then into bridge 1, into a little bit of chorus 1, up to speed without the microphone on so you can hear just the drums. Here we go. So back up to the crash cymbal for chorus 1, all the ride cymbals I mentioned. And I won't spend too much time on each of these bars because they're basic rock beats. You just got to work out, you just got to read where the bass drum's playing. So if I was to play that first line for you, nothing really complicated going on apart from perhaps bar 4. 1, 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1, 2 and 3 and 4. And then bar 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So just naturally 3 and 4 and. He doesn't ride through 3 and 4 and, although you could do if you wanted to. I'm hearing 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, or 3 and 4 and, just to give those two notes just a bit more power. By the way, just very briefly, you may notice that on the recording you're sort of hearing and not. After a while of playing the drums, after a few years, you sort of develop this molar whip technique, which allows you to play this kind of motion. And when you play it on the crash cymbal, you can hear that the downbeat is louder than the ands in between. So I'm actually playing eighth notes as well as Nicka is, but you're only really hearing the downbeats. So if you're playing it like this, that won't sound correct, that won't sound like the recording, so you might just want to play quarter notes instead. So whenever you've got any of these bars, for example, if I play the first line for you as quarter notes on the crash, 1, 2 and 3 and 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 1, 2 and 3 and 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. That sounds like the recording, so don't feel you have to play the eighth notes. That is what he's playing, but it's using a technique so you only really hear the downbeat. So if you can't replicate that, just play quarter notes on the crash cymbal. Might be a little bit more tricky with your bass drum because you've got the notes falling in between what the right hand's doing, but for an intermediate drummer to advance, that shouldn't be too much of a problem. Okay, so then we go on to page 2, where I've written chorus 1 continued. And at this stage, like I said, I'm not going to go through all the bars here because they're very, very similar to each other. All 3 lines are exactly the same when it comes to the first 3 bars. And then so we'll just look at the end of each line where we got a particular drum fill. So the end of line 1, 1 and 2 and 3 and, he just plays the centre on its own. You could play and, but he doesn't on the recording. 1 and 2 and 3 and then 4 E and high tom, medium tom. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 E and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 E and 1. Then on to the next line, the bar 4, we get 1 and 2 and then 3 and 4 and, which is a bit weird. So it's snare drum at the end of the bar and the and of 4. 3 and 4 and 1. 3 and 4 and 1. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. So look out for stuff like that. That's kind of cool and interesting. By the way, also, and I haven't notated it on the chart, and you'll hear it more later in the song. He's using different crash cymbals to accent beat 1 of each line usually, after each of the drum fills. So he might play just to give that crash cymbal on beat 1 a different sound. So you know, there's beat 1 kind of thing. But if you just want to stay on the same crash cymbals I've notated here, that's absolutely fine. But listen to the song, you'll hear sometimes different crash cymbals popping out. And so that's just because he's moved to a different crash for that particular note. But you know, that's up to you to sort of play around with, emphasize where you want to emphasize with the crash cymbals. So the last line there, bar 4, 1 and 2 and 3, and then and 4 E and. Again, we could use double bass drum pedal, but I don't think he does. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 E and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 E and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 E and. If you can't play the and, you could just play ands. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 E and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 E and. Whenever you've got these 2 bass drum notes, they occur a few times in the song, you could just play the 1 bass drum on the and instead of the and as well. So if you really can't do that. A lot of fun to play though. Then we go into bridge 2, back to loose hi-hats, and we get this idea where we're skipping over beat 1 for bars 2, 3 and 4. 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, 3, 4 and 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. Bar 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Again, he comes off the hi-hat for the and of 3 and the and of 4. 3 and 4 and. Just to give his right hand time to move to a different crash cymbal. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. 4 and 1 I played there. So before we go on to verse 2, let's go back. Basically what I'll play for you is back to page 1. I'll play the whole of chorus 1 into page 2, into bridge 2, up to speed. So verse 2 has an identical structure to verse 1, except for a few differences. The drum fills at the end of line 2 and 4 are slightly different. So the end of line 2, bar 4, we get, it's closed hi-hat, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Remember before we had 3 and 4, now he plays 3 and 4 and. So an extra bass drum at the end there, 3 and 4 and 1, where the hi-hat closes. By the way, again, well not again, I mentioned it, but again, because I've mentioned it many times in other videos, when you come off the crash cymbal, don't feel the need to rush back to the hi-hat on the and of beat 1. You can come back to the hi-hat on beat 2 instead. I think I mentioned that quite a few times in other videos. 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2. I came down there on beat 2 rather than 1 and. You could do either, it doesn't matter. So then at the end of line 4, bar 4, we get 1, 2 and then it's 3 and 4 and. Simple as that. 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and. So those last two bars, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and. Notice that extra bass drum there on the and of beat 4 at the end of bar 3. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and. And then we're into bridge 3. Back to loose hi-hats. So let's go straight to bar 4 where we get an interesting drum fill. 1 and 2 and-a. Again, you could just play and, but he plays and-a into a flam on 3, 3 and then it's a lovely little lick this, very simple, 4-E and, down the toms starting on the snare. 4-E and 1. So 1 and 2 and a 3 and 4-E and. 1 and 2 and a 3 and 4-E and. And I've written there the hi-hats playing with the bass drum on the and. That might be a mistake. You could play it with the hi-hat, but I just naturally left out the hi-hat there with the and of beat 2. 1 and 2 and a 3. Just gives my hands a bit more time to come down to the snare drum, but I've written it 1 and 2 and a 3. You won't hear the difference. It's just what you feel comfortable doing. 1 and 2 and a 3. 1 and 2 and a 3. And a 3 and 4-E and. 1 and 2 and a 3 and 4-E and 1. So let's do the last two bars there going into page 3. Into the crash. 1, 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and a 3 and 4-E and 1, 2 and 3 and 4. Then we're into our next page. So chorus 2. End of line 1, very simple. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. No drum fill there really. Well, not at all. End of line 2 though, kind of cool. We get 1 and 2 and a 3 and 4-E and a. Straight after that crash cymbal on the and a 2 and a 3 and a 3 and. And I've written left, right, left. But you could play left, right, right if you wanted to. 1 and 2 and a 3 and 4-E and a 1. End of line 2 is a bit tricky. If you haven't got a double bass drum pedal, you won't be able to replicate this. It's also quite low in the mix. I wasn't 100% sure this is what he's playing, but it sounds like it, so this is what I've written. Starting from the and of beat 2, we just get a line of 16th notes with the bass drum pedal, and a 3 and a 4-E and a 1, and a 3 and a 4-E and a 1, 1 and 2 and a 3 and a 4-E and a 1. And the snare drum comes down on beat 3 as well as beat 4. 3 and a 4-E and a 1. So 1 and 2 and a 3 and a 4-E and a 1. You might want to loop this around a few times. Bars say 3 and 4. 1, 2 and 3 and 4, 1 and 2 and the 3 and the 4 and the 1, 2 and 3 and 4, 1 and 2 and the 3 and the 4 and the 1. I can't really suggest anything else you can play there. You could just play 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 ands if you haven't got the double pedal. Okay, next line, end of bar 3, we get a little bass drum push on the of beat 4. 1, 2 and 3 and 4, a 1. Pushing into beat 1, a 1. And then we get 1 and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a. Notice how we go up to the high tom there on the E and the and of 2, leading with the left hand. The left hand goes up to it, back down to snare drum for 2 notes, then back up ow, back up to the high tom for 3 more notes, and then it ends with 4E and a on the lowest tom. 1 and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1. Interesting way of playing the drum fill, where we're coming up for the E's and the ands, and the R's and the 3's, and yeah, so we get bars 3 and 4 together. 1, 2 and 3 and 4, a 1 and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1. 1, 2 and 3 and 4, a 1 and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1. So, before I go to the guitar solo, let me play for you those last 3 lines of chorus 2. The lines 2, 3 and 4 of chorus 2, because they've got the interesting drum fills at the end. Up to speed, here we go. So, staying on the crash cymbal for the guitar solo, just for a change though, perhaps you could move to the ride cymbal just to give that one crash cymbal a bit of a change, or move to a different crash cymbal. And we're just basically filling in the gaps with the bass drum a lot of the time. So, line 1 for example, and I won't play each of the lines, but line 1 is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Just filling in the gaps in between the snare drums. The end of line 2 though, we get 1 and 2 and 3 and 4E and another little cool lick, right, left before, but this time it's right, left. He just ends it with one extra note on the floor tom. Lovely fun drum fill that. So we get 1 and 2 and 3 and, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4E and a 1. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4E and a 1. The end of line 3, we get 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and a 1. Just a simple 2 snare drum notes, 16th notes on the snare drum there, and a 1. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and a 1. Then notice the last line of the guitar solo is only 2 bars long. So bar 1 standard stuff, and then bar 2, 1 and 2 and a 3 and. Same as the beginning of the song really. 1 and 2 and the 3 and. Beat 4 is not played on. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And then we get into chorus 3 where we just got the vocals for 4 bars. And then onto page 4, chorus 3 continued, the drums and the rest of the band kicked back in. So let's take a look at the last bar there of line 1. 1 and 2 and. Another one of these drum fills where we're coming up on the E's and the ands. 3E and a 4, but then it ends with 4E and a. Again, a lovely flow of notes that. 3E and a, 4E and a 1. Feels nice to play that. 1 and 2 and 3E and a, 4E and a. So next line, bar 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and I think he plays the bass drum on its own on the and of 3 there, and then this drum fill 4E and 4E and simple as that, but instead of playing 4E and it's just 4E and so we get 3 notes on the snare drum there, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4E and a 1. Okay, next line, the end of line 3 there, bar 4, he plays 1 and 2, and then and-a, so 1 and 2 and then 3 and 4 and-a. That drum feels particularly hard to hear in the mix. I struggled to hear. He might be playing a snare drum on the E or 4, but I don't think he is. I think he's playing 3 and 4 and 1. And even if he's not, that's probably a bit more interesting than just playing. He plays. So we get 1 and 2, which might catch you out. Those two snare drum surprises there on the and of 1 and 2. 1 and 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1. Into bridge 4, and we're back to loose hi-hats. The end of line 1 there, we get 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and. I've written on the next line, coming back to the hi-hat on beat 1, but I tend to come back to the hi-hat on the and of beat 1 with the bass drum, and that's probably a little bit easier. I kind of recommend it, playing it that way. Even though I've written the hi-hat on beat 1, which you could play, you don't feel the need you have to rush back, because that crash cymbal is ringing out from the and of beat 4. 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and. So then the last line there, we got another crash cymbal at the end of bar 3. 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and actually this is the example I just talked about, where you don't rush back to the hi-hat for beat 1. In fact, Nicka doesn't. He just stays up on the crash cymbal, skip over beat 1, come in with the snare drum again on the the crash cymbal again on the and of beat 1. 1 and then straight after that crash cymbal, 1 and 2 E and This is probably a little bit tricky for some people. And 3 E and, but it's the bass drum that allows you then to play snare and crash on beat 3. So you need to put that bass drum in smoothly. Lovely little lick to play on its own, can be used anywhere in music, so it's good fun to practice it, even if you're not planning to use it in the song. But what we get there is a 1 and 2 E and 3, and then and 4, flam on 4, 4 and 1, and the song ends there. So those last 3 bars, we get 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 E and 3 and 4 and 1. Almost missed it. Try that again slowly, then I'll play up to speed for you. 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 E and 3 and 4 and 1. 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 E and 3 and 4 and 1. 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 E and 3 and 4 and 1. I missed the crash cymbal there. So now let me play it for you up to speed properly. So I'll basically play for you the last page, page 4. So the whole of chorus 3 continued up to the end of the song through bridge 4. Here we go. So if you've got any questions about any of that, feel free to email me, rob@drumstheword.com. Don't forget to download the full PDF drum chart for this song. All 4 pages are available for free from my website. And also you can check out my Facebook page. You'll find a link on my website for that as well. Or just type in Drums the Word into Facebook and you'll find it. That's the best place to make song suggestions, like this song was suggested today. And then while you're at my website, you might also want to consider signing up to become an online member at drumstheword.com. And what I currently offer for $97 is a full year's online access to every single full video song lesson I've ever recorded and transcribed. That's coming up to 450 famous and popular songs. Just like this lesson, I teach you every single bar from start to finish. You get the fully transcribed drum chart. And like I said, I've got almost 450 full and famous popular songs up on the website already. As a thank you for signing up, I'll give you access to even more, hundreds of little videos teaching you many famous drum beats, fills and even drum solos. I'll give you 3 ebooks I've written over the years containing hundreds more famous drum beats, fills and solos. And then over the year of your subscription, you also gain instant online access to all the new material that I upload for my members. And I record new lessons every week unless I'm ill or on holiday. So you've got plenty of stuff to look forward to over the year of your subscription. But if you've got any questions about any of that, feel free to email me, rob@drumstheword.com. And until our next drum lesson together, toodle pip and happy drumming to you.